Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Hokey smoky. I guess we got to get caught up a little bit on some stuff, and we'll see how it goes. There's not that much to get caught up on. We'll see how long-winded I can be. I don't really want to cut too much into an opportunity to lash out, which is what I really want to do, but I don't want to be like, well, we have 10 minutes left. Here's what I had to say angrily. I'd rather just save it for tomorrow. So, as per usual, we're going to play it by ear, because I never know if, sometimes 30 seconds in, it's like, well, crap, I'm out of news. And sometimes we touch on one topic, and that's all the time we have. What do we have here today? Why don't we start with, kind of talked about this already, but we got some details here. The Aaron Rodgers contract, I find it interesting. I know some of you are shut up about Rodgers. I'm sorry. He was our quarterback for a long time. I'm going to talk about him until he retires. That's just the way it goes. And guess what? He's going to retire and pop up on Joe Rogan, and I'm going to talk about it because it's funny. Because I feel like it. Steelers contract, 1 year, $13.65 million is his base salary. $10 million was a signing bonus, so that portion of it is basically all cash up front. They're going to take on a $14 million cap hit this year. There is, in addition, a $5.85 million incentive package. He gets a $500,000 if they go to the playoffs, $600 additional $1,000 if they win a wild card game. If they win a divisional game, he gets $750,000. I wonder if he automatically gets the $600,000 if they don't go to the wild card. You know what I mean? You get the 1 seed. Can you just throw $600,000 in my? Just wondering. I don't want to play so good I screw myself out of a $500,000. Is all I'm saying. Conference championship, you get $1 million. Super Bowl win is $1.5 million. If you're the league MVP, $1.5 million. So I kind of mentioned this before. I'm genuinely curious how much of this is a team-friendly deal as opposed to this is about as good of a contract as he's going to get. When you look at $13.5 million, it's like, come on. That's stupid. He's obviously worth more than that. Then when you look at the full potential cap, you're about $20 million. And the really sad part about it is that apparently that's right around what Justin Fields is getting on a per year, and that's 2 years, $40 million. But I would feel like he should be kind of in that next category. 34-year-old Geno Smith is getting $37.5 million. You know what I mean? So on one hand, I'm looking at it and saying, yeah, I don't know how much this is team-friendly. He might just not be worth anything. But on the other hand, granted, he's not getting 50, and he's not getting 40, but 30s would seem somewhat reasonable. 13 with, a lot of the other not getting paid. It sounds like they offered him basically 13. They're like, look, we'll just pretty much give you the whole thing up front, so you're making all of this. And the rest you probably won't make. Maybe a little bit here and there, but right now, without the incentives, Justin Fields ranks 21st with $20 million per year. Then Daniel Jones is getting 1 year, $14 million, and then Aaron Rodgers, 1 year, $13.65, just above Cam Ward. Interestingly, though, Russell Wilson, 1 year, $10.5. So is that team friendly, or is it just we just don't think he's very good? And that to me kind of changes the calculus a little bit in my mind, where if Russell Wilson can fall from grace that hard, that he's all the way down to 1 year, $10.5 million. I don't know, man. 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, bad injury a couple years ago, really bad season. And I know everybody loves throwing these stats up. Somebody did it again. It drives me insane. They put his stats next to C.J. Stroud's stats. It were slightly better, I would say, than C.J. Stroud, maybe right in that range. And it's like, oh, I thought he was bad. Look at that. Bro, look at the numbers. Do you not know what good numbers are? Those are not good numbers. All you proved here is that C.J. Stroud didn't have a good year. That's it. You're looking at yards that start with a 3, touchdowns that start with a 2, and double-digit interceptions, right? You didn't get to 30 touchdowns or 4,000 yards? Then shut up about how great of a season you had. Talk to me when you get to like 5,000 yards and 40, 50 touchdowns. That's like peak quarterback play, all right? Good quarterback play is 4,000 yards and like 30 some odd touchdowns. You want to show me 3,800 yards and 24 touchdowns? I'm kind of making up numbers here, but it's in that range and 11 interceptions. Let's not be so insulting to Aaron Rodgers that we pretend that this is a good Aaron Rodgers year. There are certainly some positive numbers as far as what Aaron Rodgers did, and I don't think he was the main driving factor in why the team was as bad as it was, because he wasn't as bad as the team was as a whole. However, there are a couple different things to note here. Number one, Rodgers was not peak Rodgers. He wasn't MVP Rodgers. It was one of his worst seasons. That's, for a Hall of Famer, that might still be a decent season for some people. But this is a significant fall from grace. This is not MVP Rodgers that we've seen. We haven't seen MVP Rodgers since 2022-ish. And even that, as I've said, he probably shouldn't have won MVP. But still, that's him looking Rodgers-y. We understand it's 2025, right? That was a while ago. The last time he was like Hall of Fame Rodgers was 2021. Oh, wait, no. 2020, right? 2020 and 2021 were his 2 years. 2022 was a bad year. 2023 was love. Yeah, so it all goes back a year. 2020, long time ago. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I don't know. I find it interesting, and I wonder. I just wonder. I wonder if he could have got better than because there was a report, and it might just be some kind of a bitter thing. But I know I don't think I have it in my notes. I had it saved, and then I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. That just seems kind of spiteful. But it was Adam Schefter, as I just say it anyways. Adam Schefter did a video and essentially said, look, Aaron Rodgers was the Steelers' third option. They wanted Fields, he went somewhere else. They wanted Russell, he went somewhere else, and so they got Aaron Rodgers. If that is the truth, and that's kind of the low opinion that is around the league. Oh, by the way, the other confounding factor that I didn't mention, forgot about, some of the failure of the team wasn't necessarily what Rodgers did on the field as much as what he did off the field. He's not very conducive to just having a great locker room environment. It's hard to just argue that point at this point. We've seen it now. Things were very toxic in Green Bay. I know there's a couple little tidbits here and there after he left. Not much. Romeo did a weird thing. Jair was a little weird. Most of that was the defense was pissed off at Joe Barry. I think we're pretty good now. It was nowhere near the level of drama and intensity and all that stuff when Rodgers was toward the end after the Jordan years and all that stuff. He goes to the Jets, and for a terrible organization that you wouldn't think could get any lower, that's about as low as I've ever seen the Jets. It was a complete disaster. The coaching staff, everybody, everything's getting leaked, and people are mad, and that wide receiver doesn't like Rodgers, and Rodgers wants his new guys, and it was horrible. I'm just saying, if he got the best offer, who would have given it to him? Because like I said before, not a lot of options out there for Aaron. And apparently, this is another report, the Vikings, which are a major, thought to be a major player here, Rodgers said he'd rather retire than go play for the Vikings. I hope that that's a true quote, because I desperately want that to be true, because that's awesome, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Aaron. Somewhere deep down inside, he'll always be a Packer. It's just the way it goes. Unlike Favre. Friggin' jerk. Sorry, he retired. We're all good now, but still. That was a douche move. By the way, I'm searching high and low for that whole Rodgers quote, and aside from some scam account nonsense, I'm not seeing anything about Rodgers honestly actually saying that. In fact, it's more the opposite, where it sounded like there was a lot of interest. But I'm going to choose to believe Rodgers said he would not play for the Vikings, so there you go. According to The Athletic's reporting, Rodgers has made it known that he is hoping to sign with the Vikings. What a jag-off. Screw him. Never mind. He may retire if he doesn't get an offer from the Vikings. You want to be Favre so bad, bro. Anyways, I want to talk a little bit about this Shemar Stewart situation in the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a very unusual thing, and again, the NFL keeps evolving, so I don't know if this is just the Bengals being stupid, if this is a sign of things to come. It's a very unique situation that I've never seen before. I mentioned on, I think it was yesterday's episode, I come out and say, because every year, there's a rookie that doesn't sign, and sometimes it's a Packer, and it's like, oh, they haven't signed yet. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Phone calls. And I said, just calm down. These things, they get signed. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. You got little details to work out, but it's going to get worked out, so who cares? What was this big announcement? Oh, so-and-so is signed. We're saved. Duh. Well, turns out that's not a thing anymore. Very, very weird situation. The Cincinnati Bengals are trying to set some kind of a new precedent. And Shemar Stewart, their number 17 overall pick, I guess is the guy they've decided to foist this upon. There's some talk that the agent is kind of a young, new guy or whatever, so maybe they thought they could take advantage of him or slip it past him. I don't really know. But the Bengals are trying, and again, I had to look this up like 10 times because it doesn't even sound real. But they're trying to slip a clause into his contract that would void all future guarantees in the case of any default. And it's like, okay, well, what the heck is a default? A default is basically you did anything wrong. It could range from, you got in trouble off season, doing drugs, or you got caught with a gun, all the way down to you didn't pass your physical. Now, apparently there are these sort of default clauses in contracts for that year, essentially saying, look, you messed up, you got suspended or whatever, so we get to void the guarantees for this year, which makes sense. If you're not going to play or whatever, then you lose those guarantees. It's whatever. It makes no sense to void the rest of the guarantees. And again, the only thing I can think is in the case of some kind of terrible off-season incident, they're going to want to cut you, but you've got 5 more years. Again, not necessarily for this rookie contract. It sounds like they're trying to slip it in here so that they could set a precedent for future big contracts to be able to put this language in there. But it just seems crazy to me, and I can't imagine anybody's going to go for it. And as of right now, Shemar Stewart is not going for it, and he's being very open and vocal about how surprised he is at how terrible things are. Like, I'm showing up, I'm here, I'm trying to participate, I'm working out, I'm trying to get things going here, and these guys are trying to screw me on the contract. I don't understand this. He's like, look, I just want the same contract that you gave to Amarius Mims last year, your first-round pick, His stance is, I'm not asking for anything. I'm not the one asking for something special. I just want the normal contract that everybody else gets. And so he was showing up for mandatory minicamp. He decided he wasn't going to do that anymore. He left mandatory minicamp Thursday. This is all going on at the same time that Trey Hendrickson doesn't have a contract and is very unhappy with the team and has voiced that publicly, how dissatisfied he is with the organization. I mean, that kind of stuff is not great for an organization. Joe Burrow has come out and said that this is a distraction for the team. Usually other people get asked about it and they're like, oh, we don't worry about it. We're just focused on what we're doing. To come out and publicly say, yes, this is a distraction for all of us. Again, not great. The big part about this is sort of twofold in terms of, there's kind of 3 things that intertwine with the Packers. One is it's just kind of interesting to pay attention to these kind of things so that we can kind of see. I don't know if this is where the NFL is trying to go, if it's something where, the Bengals are trying to foist something that, obviously every team would love to have this language in a contract. It just seems, to me, completely unreasonable unless there's an angle that I'm missing. Again, I talked to the robot back and forth for a long time, like, try to convince me. Make this make sense. You're the team, sell me on this. And all the points suck. The only thing that they came up with that even kind of made sense, and again, it's a terrible argument, is you kind of devalue the product. That's why a 1 year is not necessarily good enough. I'm just not buying that. I'm just absolutely not buying that. And beyond that, even if it was true and the whole value went to 0, that's life, dude. Again, there's risk on both sides when you make these contracts. You have clauses in there to protect you and to do all these kinds of things that work against the player, and the player has certain protections, and that's just the way it goes. And you can't strip away every single protection at the first sign of any trouble just because screw you. It's so stupid. So that's number one, right? It's an interesting contract thing that's happening right now in the NFL that'll be worth monitoring. Number 2, somewhat not related but kind of related, is the Trey Hendrickson situation, because Trey Hendrickson was another one of those. I'm sure they're going to get something done, but things are so ugly right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't end up playing for the Bengals. Now, we're a long way away from not only that happening, but him ending up being a Green Bay Packer, but it does give me some hope when you look at just how dysfunctional and terrible things are, that Trey is going to look at this and go, I don't even freaking want to be here. This is awful. They don't do the contracts right, and I want to go to a team that knows what they're doing and wants me there and wants to pay me appropriately, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that the Packers are that team. I would guess that they're not, but it's still interesting. Number 3 is the fact that if Stewart does not sign his deal, if this goes unresolved, and I don't know when the cutoff is, Stewart can potentially re-enter the 2026 draft. Now, that absolutely sucks for him to lose an entire year, but he can do that. And that, I think, is the ultimate leverage that he has against the Bengals, why I think the Bengals are going to have to break on this. They have no leverage other than hoping that he just doesn't want to do that. But I don't know. Be interesting to see if we can draft him next year. But that is a mess, and the whole Bengals thing is a complete disaster. The team seems like it's really poorly run, and I think maybe it's a worse run team than I was necessarily made aware of, because they got Joe Burrow, who covers up a multitude of sins, and a couple other picks that were very high ended up working out, like Jamar Chase, and it's kind of helping to hide how dysfunctional the organization is. But it sounds absolutely terrible. Anyways, all right, let's take our first break, and we'll be back with a little bit more news and notes. In some general NFL interest, apparently, and this is not something I've tracked, we talk a lot about Roger Goodell and, I don't know, him as the head honcho and how he's run things and everything. Apparently, there was a man by the name of Brian Rolapp, and he was expected to take over for Roger Goodell when the time came. He just accepted a job as the PGA Tour's first ever CEO. So, there you go. Apparently, Roger Goodell's contract goes through 2027. I think most expect he's going to get another extension, so none of this is necessarily going to matter, but I thought, why not look into it a little bit? First of all, if he does step aside in 2027 or maybe after his next contract or whatever, Brian Rolapp could return, take the job for the NFL. On top of that, though, a couple candidates to keep in mind. Troy Vincent, current Executive VP of Football Operations with NFL player experience and NFLPA leadership. He would be the first black commissioner of major American sports league, so that would also make it more likely, on top of just him being kind of next in line right now. Jeff Pash, NFL General Counsel, considered the break glass in case of emergency candidate with extensive institutional experience. My assumption is if some kind of a tragic thing took place and needed an immediate person to step in temporarily, that would be who it is until they find somebody else. And then Renee Anderson is the Chief Revenue Officer with a strong grasp of revenue generation, team economics, and sponsorships. The other thing is that there's the possibility that they may restructure the way things are done. There's been a lot of talk about possibly splitting the job into 2 jobs, Commissioner of Football and CEO of Business. Apparently, this was tossed around back in 1989 when Jim Finks was offered a job to be Commissioner of Football alongside Paul Tagliabue. He turned that down, but something to keep an eye on. It's 2025 already. In a couple years, if there is no extension, look for guys like Troy Vincent or possibly Brian Rolapp to come back. What exactly that could mean for a change in the NFL, I don't exactly know. I would tend to think kind of similar to the way the Packers do things. Number one, they've kind of grown up institutionalized in the role of this is the way we do things, and so that's what they know. On top of that, they're going to want to pass it down to somebody that handles business in a similar fashion. If they thought that somebody was going to radically change the way they do things, they wouldn't pick that person, would be my assumption. So whoever it is probably going to end up trying to run the NFL in a similar fashion. Hopefully someone that doesn't have a panic attack on TV when they're announcing draft picks, like in 2020, I'm just saying. Little bit of Jair news. Josina Anderson said, I am told 6 teams made immediate inquiries about cornerback Jair Alexander upon his release from the Packers Monday, per league source. Kind of torn on how to read that. She seems to be trying to portray it as like, oh man, like immediately these teams swooped in. However, I'm kind of looking at it and saying everybody knew this was coming, and it officially happened, and out of 31 teams in the NFL, 6 reached out. Seems like not a ton. I know it's, immediate. I'm sure some other teams did, but I would have thought that number was closer to 15, 17, 20 just to make a phone call, I don't know. But again, hard to know exactly what's going on there. We'll see if Jair ends up getting a contract in the near future. If so, it'll be interesting to kind of take a look at that. Speaking of the Jair, though, something kind of odd. Apparently, Jair Alexander's dad has been all over social media, kind of just running his mouth. He seems very angry at the notion that Jair was refusing to take a pay cut. ESPN posted, at the end of the day, Jair just didn't want to take a pay cut. That was Peter Schrager broke down how the Packers made the decision to release Jair Alexander. His dad commented and said that's a flat-out lie. He also said in other posts, it's not true. Nobody ever said he wouldn't take a pay cut. He wasn't willing to play for damn near free is a better quote. He also said, can't play on a contract without any guarantees. They need to stop the cap. Very willing to restructure. We understand business, and it would be foolish to have zero guaranteed money. And then he said, I appreciate how you said that as it was spot on. The only thing that was slightly off is that there was an unwillingness to rework a contract. There actually was a willingness. They just offered something that would have been foolish to take. The unwillingness was on them. And I think we kind of knew that. I think that was kind of out there. Jair was seeking guarantees, and the Packers that was the one thing they didn't want to hand out, was guarantees. Because the one thing Jair can't do is guarantee anything, right? Well, can you guarantee you'll be healthy? No. Well, then I'm not going to guarantee a bunch of money in your contract. We'll give you an incentive-based contract. He says, well, screw that, I want guarantees. Well, herein lies the problem, folks. And I'll tell you what, very unexpected, and in however many 1,000 episodes I've done, this is the first. But it is actually extremely late. I could wait until tomorrow, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do this one last thing. We're going to bounce. Very short episode today. And then tomorrow we're just going to get into the good stuff. All right? So here is an update on the Green Bay Packers helmet situation. I talked about how there was going to be a new alternate helmet. And would you be quiet, please? Sorry, he's talking to me. You can't hear him yet. There was some thought that maybe they'd be airbrushing some leather and all that kind of stuff. Well, here is the latest on that situation.
Just got some new info about what could be the NFL's wildest new helmets. Some context for those who missed it. In February, I reported 5 teams to be getting a new alternate helmet. Then in May, I reported the Packers as a surprise team to be getting another new alt helmet, following what I thought was a disappointing white one last season. Well, now we got a clearer picture of what Green Bay's new helmet could look like. In my first report, I said the helmet was described as something that's unique and has never been seen before. So I think this would look cool. Clearly, it's not going to happen. I'm told Green Bay's new alt helmet is complex and is a big reason why it was a late addition to the helmet inventory. And then Andrew Lind reported that this new helmet will be paired with 1950s throwbacks, which in iteration was worn last year by Green Bay. My first assumption was that Green Bay's new helmet would look like Illinois' leather helmet, but I think we should look at Green Bay's history first. The Packers stopped wearing a leather helmet in 1950, then switched between a yellow and white helmet for the 1950s, except from 51 to 53, when they exclusively wore a gold helmet with a green stripe. I wasn't able to find a colored picture of that exact helmet, but designs from the time show a similar color to this. So whether it's a gold helmet or a slightly smoother looking leather design for Green Bay, it either way lines up with the upcharge of these new Packers helmets and the costly time literally it took to put these into inventory. Sadly, I think this does rule out the one option almost all Packers fans seem to want, a cheese-looking helmet.
So my leather helmet dream may be dead and they're just doing gold with a green stripe. I don't know. But either way, that's the latest on that situation. Anyways, believe it or not, it is after midnight and I am falling asleep in my chair here. And so I think that's the last of the updates that I've got that are not involved with me just going on a rant at negative fans who are driving me absolutely freaking nuts, and we'll focus on that tomorrow. But I'm going to get out of here. Y'all have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.